Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Sam and I'm going to be doing the webinar on how to use social media for your business. Just to clarify, we had a bit of a miscommunication with our webinar uh, dates. Unfortunately, some people did sign in yesterday, so I did a webinar yesterday and I'm doing one as well today. So apologies for the miscommunication from our side. What I'm going to talking to you today is more about how to use social media for your business. Now, before I start the webinar, I just want to make sure that I am loud and clear. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So what are we going to be looking today in the next 60 minutes is a better understanding about what is social media, why is it important for your business, is your business ready for social media, what's the actual process that you need to follow, and some of the tools that you can use to make your social media a much better platform and optimizing your time that you spend on social media. At the end of the event, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, or if you want a copy of your presentation or the presentation, just send me a request and I can forward you a copy of this presentation. So let's look at why everyone is talking about social media. Now, the thing about social media is that it's been there for quite some time. Maybe 3-4 years back, only the larger companies looked at social media, and the smaller businesses didn't want to get into social media. But nowadays, practically every business, whether they like it or not, will need to be part of the social media revolution. And one of the other challenges with social media is practically everyone wants to do it, but most people don't know exactly what needs to be done. For a lot of people that I speak to about social media, their understanding about social media is to have a presence on Facebook, have an account on Twitter, and a couple of videos on YouTube. But the fact is, that's just not being, on social media. Okay, social media is a complete strategy. A lot of people actually believe that social media is free, and I've seen smaller businesses saying, I don't want to spend money on Google AdWords. I want to stop doing SEO because social media will give me better returns. The problem with social media is that it is not free. It's quite expensive depending upon the size of your business. When I talk about being expensive, it's not about you outsourcing it to someone. With social media, the most expensive part of social media is your time. Imagine if you're a small business and you're doing everything for your business. You're working in and on your business. Apart from doing all that thing, you still would need to, set aside 1 or 2 hours a day to do your social media. And this is a challenge. We've seen a lot of people get extremely excited about setting up a blog. But the fact is almost 60% of people do not go beyond a third post on their blog. So social media is not a solution or replacement to the search engine optimization or Google AdWords or whatever. It only complements the process. As time goes by, however, you might change the amount of efforts you put in, maybe SEO and Google AdWords, and then maybe focus more on social media. You cannot just switch off one of them and say that the other will do the rest. So you got to make sure that if you're planning to go to social media, don't consider social media as a solution and you can stop the other things that you're doing at the moment. It is going to be a combination of all the factors. The only thing is based on the kind of business you're into, and depending upon your customers, you need to understand how much of exposure you want on social media. The biggest difference is about social media is that unlike search results, when you go into Google and search for something, Google gives you information of things that happened in the past or what Google has indexed, as compared to social media where you basically get information about a conversation that is happening right now. So, and more importantly, when you look at results on Google search, you're picking up information which are mainly driven by the business owner. But when you go to social media, the information that you get is basically done by users or end users who actually are trying to find a solution or looking out for information. And what you got to look at social media is that social media gives you a good source of information. That information can be used by your business to do research, to get feedback from your customers, or it could be the new level of customer service in terms of building up relationships. So when you look at getting into social media, don't just jump into social media and saying, I need to set up a Facebook page in the next 24 hours, or I will go and set up a Facebook account and YouTube channel, a Twitter account, and so on. What you got to do is before even you start setting up these accounts, you need to do a research on social media. You need to plan exactly what you want to achieve out of social media. And before you start talking on social media, the first thing you got to do is you got to listen to what's happening at the moment. You don't want to go and start a conversation which no one is interested in, or you don't want to start a conversation which is too old, or it doesn't really solve people's problem. So before you get into social media, the first part of the strategy is purely around doing your research, planning on what you want to achieve, setting up milestones, listening to what's happening on social media, and then actually getting on to setting up your campaigns. And frankly speaking, nowadays, almost 75% of the businesses that go onto social media simply go without a business plan or without a social media plan. They just jump into social media. And the problem with that is, you'll not be able to measure success. You will not know what you want to achieve out of it. And as time goes by, or as you get more and more busy with your day-to-day business, your social media gets basically hardly noticed or hardly recognized. So it's not the same way how you do Google AdWords or how you do your search engine optimization. Social media strategy is totally different from that. Social media strategy is not just about acquiring new customers. Social media strategy is all about acquiring new customers, keeping your existing customers happy, and looking at how you can convince your existing customers to recommend your business. I mean, frankly speaking, for every business you speak to today, the best source of lead is word of mouth. And today social media is the new word of mouth. The whole thing about social media is getting other businesses to talk about your business. If you go onto Facebook and you go onto Twitter and you just keep on talking about your promotions, in a short period of time you'll see that hardly anyone is interested, because you're using that social media platform as a display board to sell your promotions. Social media is not a sales platform for direct sales. It's a platform where you go and educate people, or you provide your level of your engagement with your existing customers. So if you're looking at using social media, you got to use it not as a sales engine. Use that as a customer service platform. Use that and as an option for people to give you feedback. For instance, if you're planning to launch a new product or you have a new concept, social media is a great place to go and get ideas or feedback from potential customers and so on. It's a great place to find out what's happening within your industry. If your competition is very active in social media, I think social media is an easier way to find out what your competition is up to or what are they planning to achieve. It's a great place to talk about what's happening within your organization, to share company updates, new product launches, and run sales competition and so on. you got to go one step back to understand, why social media is important for your business. I've been doing webinars and seminars for the last couple of years, and I've been talking to small and micro businesses. And when I get into a room talking to them about social media, the common response I get from them, it's a waste of time, and I don't see getting any business out of social media. So you got to understand, it's not about getting business. It's about building up your brand, your image, or getting your existing customers to recommend your business to their friends and family. So if you look at a traditional shopping process, we are so used to seeing an ad or looking at a website, looking at a mailer, looking at a catalog, then maybe going to the website or calling up a toll-free number, talking to a salesperson, discussing price, and making a purchase. That's what our traditional sales process used to be. But in the last 2 years, a lot has changed. The sales process has become extremely complex. It's not as simple as it used to be. And that's why today a lot of e-commerce stores are struggling. The new process is quite complex. Nowadays when people are buying a product, they're more likely to look at product reviews. They're more likely to look at testimonials. They're more likely to go onto Facebook or Twitter and ask for recommendation. They're more likely to look at, how many fan followers you have, what kind of videos you have. Do you have videos on how to use the product? So, a lot of companies today upload videos on YouTube saying how to use the product, and that actually helps you reduce your customer service. Imagine if you're selling a mobile device like an iPhone. You buy an iPhone and you want to know how to insert a SIM card. You're not going to call up Apple. What you're going to do is you're going to go onto YouTube and search for how to install a SIM card or micro SIM on an iPhone, or how to set up your emails on an iPhone, because you'll find more information out there. And that's what we're used to. We're getting a bit lazy. We don't like to read text. We rather watch videos. It makes it easier for us to follow steps and make things happen. And that's one of the reasons why today it's not that people have stopped buying online. People are buying online, but there's so many factors that they look at before they actually say yes to you. And as time goes on, as more and more businesses go online, the competition is going to get more and more difficult, and that means you got to be able to convince your customers better. And the best way to convince your customers today, apart from price, are all the other social elements that you can do. You got to look at the new buying process. Nowadays, more people go onto things like Facebook, Twitter. They would like to ask their friends and family for recommendation before they trust a salesperson or they trust someone on a website owner. So imagine if you're not active on Twitter or you're not active on Facebook. These are pre-sales questions which you can convince them to come to you. So that's the importance of, being on Twitter or Facebook. Imagine if someone goes on to Twitter and talks bad about your business. If you're not active on Twitter, you're not there to react it. Maybe it's not the right story, but you need to be there to prevent your image online. Otherwise, if you do not react to it, the damage will be done without you knowing about it. And you'll be surprised when you go onto Twitter, you'll see the kind of stuff people actually ask on Twitter, about where to buy a product, which is the best place to go and dine, what are your recommendations about this business, has anyone used this company, and so on. The same thing goes with today, with e-commerce stores. There are two different strategies for an e-commerce store. One is you can have an e-commerce store on a shopping cart software with social media plugins like, follow us on Twitter, or be a fan of us on Facebook, or watch our videos on YouTube. That's one strategy of setting up an e-commerce store. The other strategy, which is slowly picking up, is actually having an e-commerce store on Facebook. Now, this concept is not picked up well in this part of the world, but it's picking up quite well in the US. So in some time you'll find that rather than spending $10,000 setting up an e-commerce store, you might as well set up an e-commerce store on Facebook. But again, it's not a fix for all businesses. It's only meant for companies where the entire target audience uses social media and are active in social media. If your customers don't spend time much on social media, then it's not the right strategy for you. So I think the question you might need to ask yourself, why is social media important? Now, the next couple of slides, I'm just going to talk about things that you might already know, but it's just to understand it better. The people who shop online are the same people who shop offline. So we use the same habits. So when you walk into the store, we're looking at for some kind of advice. Either we ask the salesperson or we ask someone in the store as to what's a good product. We do the same thing on a social media platform. When we are making a buying decision or we're planning to buy something, we ask our friends and family, not on the phone but on social media. So we know that we could trust them more than anyone else. If you look at today, the kind of social media platforms that are there, it'll actually not only tell you, when you go and put in a request for a certain product, it can also, the new social media platform can also tell you which of your friends or family have actually used a similar product. So that means you go by their recommendation. The same thing goes for social media platforms like Foursquare, where you depend upon your friends and family using a certain venue for lunch or dinner, and you go by their recommendation. What is also important is the social media is not only used by end users, it's been actively used by businesses. Like most recruiting companies use LinkedIn as a best way to source out candidates. Okay, and not only that, if someone applies for a job today, the HR person within that company, before they interview the person, they're more likely to go on to LinkedIn or Facebook and try to have an understanding about what this person is all about. Your LinkedIn is your personal profile. Your social media or your Facebook gives your how do you network with your friends and so on. Okay, and quite interestingly is not only end users but even businesses today use social media to understand more of their potential candidates and so on. The good thing about social media is that unlike other traditional marketing process, social media is important because you can engage customers at three different stages. You can engage customers when they actually are planning to buy a specific product or service. You can engage customers the moment they buy a product, or you can engage customers once they're happy with you. So it helps on three stages of your sales process: pre-sales, during the sales process, and post-sales. So I think it's a matter of how do you use social media to target the most influential people for your business. And as I said earlier, social media is the way it is. The only thing is the size of the market is growing. So it's practically the same that was there 2 years back. But 2 years back, only the large enterprise companies saw the value in social media. Now every business feels a need to be on social media. So it's kind of changed a lot, and I think it's more to do with how we are getting used to social media. So when you look at, social media, it's just not about what you do on your Facebook page and Twitter. I think it's a change in culture. So for example, you need to have a social media strategy for your staff as well. You need to find a way, how would you motivate your staff to be positive about the workplace that we work in? Because if your staff are happy and they like the job that they do, they would automatically spread across to friends and family, and all of a sudden, it's like positive all around. You need to find a way about giving responsibilities within your organization to certain people to be your social media ambassador or to be a community manager for your business. Okay, it's just not keeping one person responsible for doing social media. It's a group effort. It's about how do you organize activities of social media around it. It happens in most organizations where you have a large sales force or a customer support force. Every time a salesperson has a great sale he would like to share that with his friends and family and so on. Or same that goes with customer support. If a customer support agent gets a good feedback from one of their customers, they will like to share that with what one of the customers had to say about them. That just brings a lot of positiveness within the business as well. If you look at the amount of exposure Facebook has, consider that as a marketing channel. Imagine if you're not really active in Facebook and not using Facebook as a channel, you are limiting your exposure to potential people. And the same thing goes with Twitter. I mean, what's kind of interesting is that, almost 80% of the population would know what Twitter is, but only 16% of them actually are using it. A lot of people are talking about Twitter, but how many of you all are actually using Twitter? That's a big question. But again, with Twitter, it's not about just going onto Twitter every day and saying, I'm having a sale. You need to have a strategy around that as what you want to express and what is a value. Every time you do a tweet, you need to measure it. Does it have a positive impact? Does it have a negative impact? How much of your tweets are getting, forward across or they're getting retweet? That's really important. That's how you get a better return of investment on your social media strategy. What's also interesting is the amount of time people today are spending on social media is increasing drastically. And it's quite evident from even companies like Google. Google has always been, trying to keep away from social media. They always felt that social media is not going to damage their revenue or it's not going to affect their market share. But the fact is, it is. And that's the reason today Google has got aggressive and they have launched Google Plus. Okay, they took an initial effort to their social media on Google. It didn't work, but now you could see that Google is spending a lot of time and an effort trying to build up their customer base on Google Plus. And I think it's more that, as individuals, we love to be social. We love to share information. We love to get feedback from friends and families. So when you look at, depends upon the kind of business you're into. If you're into B2B, your approach is a bit different. If you're into B2C, your approach is a bit different. So if you're targeting end users directly, then maybe, you need a bit more of social media as compared to if you're targeting businesses straight away. So depending upon which segment you fall into, you would need to plan your strategy. And as I said earlier, you can't really stop doing SEO or PPC. It's a combination of all three. Okay. The good thing about search engine optimization is that it's natural traffic. The good thing about pay-per-click is that it's qualified traffic. That means you can measure your return of investment. Whereas social media does have a return of investment, but it may not be in dollar value. It could be in terms of brand awareness and so on. And this is where a lot of companies hesitate to get into social media. You can't really measure social media's ROI purely on dollar cents. Okay, you need to give, acquiring a follower a certain dollar value, or, brand awareness, how much does it cost you? So if you don't measure it properly, then you'll never be able to say that social media is going to help your business. What is interesting is most consumers today are getting motivated or feel the need to go and comment on a product they bought online. Because whether it's a positive experience or a negative experience, they're more likely to go and share it because they feel is that they are part of the community. If they're not happy with the product that they bought, they're going to go and share that with their friends and family. And that's what is happening with the group buying sites. The group buying sites like Groupon, Jump on It picked up drastically, but at the same time, a lot of people are not happy with it. So social media is basically becoming like a medium where people can share their experiences. Okay. What also is important is that a lot of today people or end users have started following companies on social media. So for example, if you have your mobile service with Vodafone, it'll be wise for you to follow Vodafone to see what's happening with Vodafone in terms of promotions. If there's something you would like to be informed if your contract is due for renewal. If there's a downtime on Vodafone, or if the service issues are there, you would like to be informed, because I don't think Vodafone would ever come and tell you that we are sorry, your services are not it's not working or whatever it is. It's unless you realize it yourself. So nowadays most people tend to follow brands for offers, for updates, for product launches, and so on. So it's a good tool of doing a bit of brand building around out there. It's a good tool to go and convince your happy customers to go and share their experience on the social media platform. Okay. Now some of the companies have gone a bit wrong on a wrong path doing that. You cannot really go and buy followers. You can do that. There are people selling followers, but you're not going to get any revenue out of it. It's like when you do Google AdWords, it's no point bidding for a word which says free hosting, because if someone is searching for the word free hosting, there are 500,000 people searching for it. You got to understand, when someone is searching for free hosting, where's the money for you? Because they're after a free stuff, they're not going to buy from you. So the same thing goes with social media. You got to make sure that you've got the right strategy. Just because you want to add followers doesn't mean you get anyone. You got to first find out which kind of followers would add value for your business. However, if you look at some of the stats, what you'll realize nowadays is most people tend to share positive stuff on social media as compared to negative stuff. You will find more negative stuff on forums, because that's the place where people are so used to sharing negative stuff. On the social media, it's not so much, unless people start using that as a platform as well. One of the other things which is quite surprising and is that a lot of businesses today prevent their staff from actually using social media while they are at work, like preventing access for people to use Facebook. You got to understand that if you stop someone using Facebook on their computer, they still have a smartphone. You can't stop them. Most companies feel that it affects productivity. You got to look at the other way around. If you give access to people to use Facebook or Twitter or YouTube while they're working, they might use that platform to express their job satisfaction, their positive experience, which kind of feeds into what the company policies is all about. What also is important is social media is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And I guess if you do understand that if you want to be a good salesperson, you need to be a good listener. But if you just keep on talking, don't give the other person on the other side to talk back to you or explain themselves, you'll never be able to get a sale out of it. That is the same thing that goes with social media. Social media is more of a listening channel. It's about giving the end users the power to express themselves. And if you use that as a solution where you're, rather than letting them express, you're using that to push your information across, you're nothing but doing exactly what email marketing has done. You get classified as spam. Okay, we're kind of halfway through our time slot. I just want to make sure that my voice is still loud and clear. Okay, wonderful. What's also interesting is, with regards to social media, is you got to understand, which is your age, segment, or which segment, what is a age group of your potential customers. Because if most of your customers are between the age group to 18 to 34, this group are the most social people. So that means anything that they do they definitely would use a social media to express their self or to do their research and so on. So depending upon the kind of business you're into, you have to first establish how much of your customers or potential customers are spending time on social media. What's also interesting is that, if you look at some of these stats, they're quite interesting because you'll realize that, you know, a lot of people today believe more on social media than websites. So they're more happy to go with recommendations from a friend on a social media platform than recommendations from the website owner. Okay. The other thing also is that social media network users are 3 times more likely to trust opinions over advertising. Um, Again, as I said, word of mouth, of social media is practically much more effective than 200 television ads. Okay, and more importantly, social media sites are practically the fastest growing subscription base in the planet. The amount of time, something like Twitter took to reach the number of audience they have, it has taken a traditional telephone line like 30 or 40 years. So you can imagine that social media is something that people are getting hooked on to pretty quickly. And it's just not the younger generation, everyone across the board. Grandparents are forced to get onto Facebook because they find that's the easiest way to talk to the grandchildren. Not only that, it's basically the idea of friends are changing. It's about how much of information you share. You share more information with your friends on a social media platform than other traditional means of platform. You don't need to nowadays keep sending emails to friends where you can share that on Facebook. Gone are the days where you would send an email to all your friends saying, have a look at this video clip. If the video clip is worthwhile, you might just put that on Facebook and it gets all the attention it needs. I guess the question you got to ask yourself is, is your business ready for social media? Now, the way to measure that, just because someone tells you that you should be on social media doesn't mean you should jump into social media. Before you start setting up a Facebook page, you need to set certain goals, certain milestones, certain return of investment indicators, what you want to do. You got to identify who's going to be your social media community manager. Is it going to be yourself, or are you going to assign someone? Okay. Then you're going to find out exactly, how much of your potential customers are spending time on social media. The biggest challenge with social media, like a blog, is you need to find a way of creating content. You got to do something which is going to make people read or follow you. It's not just putting your marketing message across saying you're having this event today and there's 50% off. Okay, I mean, because then there's nothing different than people spamming you. So you got to think about what are you trying to achieve on social media. What's your goal? Okay, is it customer acquisition? Is it customer support? Is it word of mouth? Is it affiliate marketing? You got to find out exactly what you would like to achieve from social media. It's very difficult to say that just because you got a Facebook page you're going to make money or whatever it is. I guess the next challenge today for most businesses is there's so many different social media platforms. Which one should you start on? Now, if you're the only one who's going to do the social media for your business, you got to decide on, first of all, how much of time can you spend on a daily basis. Then based on that, decide on which are the 3 or 4 platforms which is important for your industry. Okay, is it Facebook? Is it having a blog? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn, SlideShare, and so on? Because you can't really do all of them. If you're going to be doing all of them, it's going to be a nightmare because it's going to take a lot of time. What you also need to understand is that the people who are active in social media, they also are active in multiple platforms. And the last thing you want to do is read the same information across all platforms. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they use social media software and they use a single platform that actually goes and publishes the same information across to 25 different platforms. That's great from a reach point of view. You're reaching out 20 different platforms, but you got to think from a user point of view. Imagine if you have subscribed, if you have Facebook, Twitter, and all those things, you use that as a as a source of information. You don't want to read the same information on all the platforms. You just get, oh, that's the same thing, and then people start unsubscribing. So when you look at setting up social media, I think you got to plan a social media setup. The first thing is you got to create a plan. Okay, once you create a plan, you know what your plan is all about. The next thing you got to do, I'm going to go through all this in detail, but as a setup plan, you got to have a plan. You need to own your name. That means you got to make sure that you have a similar name for your Facebook, your Twitter, and so on. Okay, then you set up your accounts on these different social media platform. Make sure that your website is social media ready. What I mean by that is that there are plug-in devices to share your website on social media, follow you on Twitter, link to your blog, have RSS feeds, and so on. Then you got to understand how are you going to engage customers. Are you going to get them to follow you on social media after they become a customer or before they become a customer, and so on. Then most important thing is to monitor your social media activity. You need to understand that every time you do something on social media, has it given a positive effect or has it been a negative effect? If you don't monitor it, you'll have no clue whether is it working for you or is working against you. So when we talk about creating a social media plan, I think the first thing is pre-planning, is trying to understand, okay, why should I do social media? What am I trying to achieve out of this? How much of time do I have? How much of content do I have? If in a month, if I'm planning to do, let's say, 2 different blog posts, what is it going to be? Is it one going to be on product? Is it other going to be on things like frequently asked questions? You got to listen to conversations. You got to see, okay, right now, what are people talking about on social media with regards to your industry? Are they looking out for a service provider? Social media is a good place to find out the frequently asked questions for your business. So if you know that most people are asking the 5 most common questions, I think it's a great thing to take those questions and even integrate that to your website. On your website, have a frequently asked question page which talks about the 5 most commonly asked questions. That will help you to improve your sales because you're reducing the pre-sales questions. You're answering it for customers, making them comfortable and making them understand that you know what your concerns are. Understand which is your target audience. Okay, you also need to find out what is the best time for you to tweet, what's the best time for you to do an update, when should you post a blog, and so on. The next thing you got to look at as a part of your setup is trying to understand what your goals are. You could set a goal that in the next 90 days you want to acquire, let's say, 100 followers or 50 fan or whatever it is. Then you got to once you've done that, you need to know how to join the conversation. So you can follow, you can keep a track on what's happening with your company name, with your personal name, with your competition, with your industry, with the association you're into. That's how you start having a conversation. And then thinking about how to measure your return of investment. I guess, when you look at pre-planning, the questions that you got to ask is, where do your customers search for information? Do they go into Google or do they go into social media? Do they consult their family or whatever it is? Then you got to find out, which of the social media networks do they really hang out on? If most of your customers are spending time on Facebook, then it's a good thing that you've got the right strategy for Facebook. Okay, you got to look at what are the questions that people would ask. So in other words, if your unique selling point is around those questions, you're going to get better sales because you're addressing someone's solution. See, no one likes to be sold, but if you are able to convince someone and say you have a solution for them, they're more likely to buy it from you. The next thing you got to do is you got to listen to a conversation. Okay, so when you're listening to a conversation, you're trying to find out what do most customers talk about. Are they have issues around turnaround times with deliveries? Is it telephone, the problem with getting through telephone customer support, and so on. So you basically start listening to conversation, and while you're listening that, the next thing you're also doing at the same time is you are securing your brand on social media platform. You want to make sure that you've got the right name for your blog, your Twitter, your Facebook, your LinkedIn account. The best way to listen to competition is to first to conversations is to one is to identify the key influencers within your industry, or look into competition, or look into blog comments and see where conversations start. One of the good way to drive traffic to your social media site is to be active on other blogs, because if you're able to go and express yourself on blogs, and if you know your industry well, okay, automatically people will start trying to find out who you are, and thereby trying to get back to you. So it's a good thing to be a part of the community in terms of contributing content. So whether you like it or not, even if you don't run your own blog, it's a good thing to be actively involved in blogs, which is a part of your industry. You got to create your target profile. You got to find out, what are your clients' customer spending habits. What kind of age group do they fall into? Okay, do they have a certain buying process, and so on. Okay, depending upon the kind of business you're into, some businesses have one-off sales, some have recurring revenue. So based on that, you got to find out the right strategy. If you've got recurring revenue as a business model, then holding on to customers is really important. So that means a social media platform automatically becomes a customer service platform. Okay, then you got to find out in terms of how actively your customers are spending time on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. See, the biggest problem with social media is that it's been there for quite some time, and some businesses find it too painful or too time consuming. So what they do is they go on and search for companies that can provide social media. The fact is, companies can provide you social media, but you need to understand that they cannot get passionate about your business. If you outsource it to someone, that person, that advertising company, will not understand your products the way you understand your products. So imagine if someone goes on to Twitter and talks bad about your product or issues with your product, you would be in a better position to react to it than the external company. So what an external social media company can do is they can help you build a strategy. They can provide you the tools to do social media. But getting them to do the actual, the content and so on is going to be a real difficult task. And it's a funny thing because there are companies in the market that provide social media services, and it's quite interesting to see the way they package their products. Some people sell social media based on the number of tweets that they do for you, or the number of blog submissions they do for you, or the number of followers they buy for you, which is kind of, it's good, but then will it add value to your business? That's the question you got to ask yourself. You got to set up specific goals around social media. Maybe the goal for you would be different from someone else. If you're looking at building up a brand, then brand awareness is one of the best things to do on social media. Okay, If you're looking at increasing your email mailing list, that's again a different strategy around social media. What also is important today is that Google has come out in the open and said that they look at social signals when they rank websites. So in other words, if you're active on social media, it's going to help your search engine optimization process. Google does give importance to social media sites. So it does pick up information whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, and so on. Okay. One of the other thing also is that social media can definitely generate leads, but then it's not the only thing it does. It's a lot of other things. It adds value to your business, your online presence, and basically, how customers react to your business. What is important is that you need to, once you've done all that, then you got to start saying, okay, now I'm ready to go on to the social media platform. I'm ready to start a conversation. So when you start a conversation, it's not starting off with saying we are a better provider. It's about saying what's your point of difference? What do you think? Maybe you may not get business straight away, but it's all about engagement. It's all about telling people, okay, this company sounds to be more genuine, more knowledgeable, and so on. So depending upon the kind of product or services you offer, your rules of engagement will definitely change. Okay, so you can help people decide on taking the right decision, or provide them a lot of content, a lot of information that could help. If you basically provide ebooks, for instance, it's a good thing to go and give people 1 or 2 chapters of your ebook for free so that they have a feel of what your book is all about and so on. Maybe it's a good way to get people, if you're doing webinars, social media is a good way of telling people there's a webinar happening, it's all about this, and get them to sign up for webinars. I think just considering social media as a replacement for other search engine optimization or Google AdWords is a wrong way to look at it. Okay. When you start joining a conversation, you got to make sure it's not a reactive way. You got to plan it well in advance. You need to say, okay, I'm going to contribute to Twitter, maybe 3 times in a week or 4 times in a week. I'm going to go and update my Facebook's, content maybe once in 3 days or whatever it is. The idea about being active in social media is to gain credibility for your business and to tell people that you know your industry better. Okay, it's not about telling people, this is a 50% off, take it, because you're not really convincing them why they should take the offer. And again, you got to have a proper plan in place, okay, as to what you plan to do in the next 4 weeks. You can't just say, okay, the next 30 minutes is my social media time, let me do something. Okay, what is really important is, it's an open platform, so it doesn't take time to get positive or negative exposure. So the last thing you want to do is not be transparent on this platform. Okay, because you're putting your face on the web, you're on a community, and if someone has got a bad experience about you, they are going to react. So you've got to be, able to react to positive as well as negative feedbacks. There's no way of saying that people on social media will only talk positive about your business. Okay, but the way you do is you use that platform as a way of gaining trust within your industry. Okay, how do you make people feel that you are a market leader in what you do? Provide them a lot of content. Use that an option of giving them free information that can help you convert them into a paying customer. Okay, and what's really important is that don't focus on selling. The moment you start selling on day one, you're not going to gain trust or credibility. Okay, it's just not about your people asking questions. As a business owner, it's a good way to react to your customers and ask them questions. Ask them what they feel about a certain product or service you offer. It's a great place to take feedback. It's a good good place to test a product or a service. It's a great place to earn reputation. And it's a great place to show people that you think out of the box or your approach is different from what it is. A lot of companies struggle to deal with negative comments, or just by not reacting to it will not solve the problem. Every business will have issues. Everyone does make mistakes, but if you go and acknowledge it, then I think people would appreciate that. But if you just try to ignore it, it doesn't go away. So social media is a two-way communication street. The moment you go onto social media, you got to understand that you need to be alert and you need to be constantly monitoring what's happening with regards to your brand, with regards to your personal image on the web. So rather than just having a to-do list on your calendar saying I need to do 3 posts on Twitter and that's it, it's not going to help for you. There are a lot of people who go onto social media for the wrong reasons. Some people go onto social media because they feel that it's free of cost. They don't have to pay anything for Google AdWords. Okay, it's not actually free. It's quite expensive because end of the day, it's your time that you spend on it. Just by spending 2 minutes or 5 minutes in a day is not going to get you a result. I mean, you got to understand, if someone is spending 5 hours a day on social media as compared to you spending 5 minutes, okay, you get the results will say it for itself. Now this is something which most people have on the mind. Okay, if I do my social media, how do I know that I'm getting business out of it? This is the age-old question that we have around marketing. Everyone wants to know, if they do spend money on advertising, on marketing, how do they measure return of investment? What you got to understand with social media is that the return of investment is not just in terms of dollar value. You got to look at different values. You got to look at how much of brand awareness are you doing. It's basically a platform not only for sales, it's a platform for your PR, it's a platform for creating your brand awareness, a platform for customer service. You got to measure the ROI based on different factors, not just the dollar value. It's more about how would you like people to react to your business. Social media is a way of reaching out to people. So when someone is thinking about buying a product or service, how do you become a part of that conversation? That's what is important. Now, you can definitely measure social media performance in terms of looking at Google Analytics or looking at other social media monitoring tool. But if you have a fixation in terms of dollar value, then it'll be a very difficult. And that's why a lot of businesses just don't want to do social media, because they say, I don't think anyone will go on to Facebook and Twitter and buy my product. So it's not about the buyings right away. It's not real-time buying. It's about convincing someone to take the right decision and move towards your website. And frankly speaking, even the biggest of companies have got it wrong with regards to social media. So the bigger the company, the bigger the exposure are, the more damage it could do for you. So you're not going to get your social media strategy right from day one, but it's an ongoing fine-tuning process. But if you try to do everything in day one, you're more likely to fail. So rather you plan up and say, let me start with one or two platform and then scale it up gradually. In terms of when you do ROI, one of the things that is worthwhile is to set up some kind of milestones, saying that in the next 90 days, I want to make sure I have at least 100 people who signed up for my newsletter, and I've at least got 100 people following me, because then that's a way to measure success. So you got to set up some realistic goals as to what you want to achieve out of the whole social media strategy. Okay, I think Alice has mentioned about the figure of 82% on 56 are engaged in social media. That is a figure that's basically worldwide. There are certain countries which are really active. Among the active countries is the US, Europe, and Australia. Some of the Asian countries are a bit slow. So it's these stats are again not something that um, I picked up these stats from various marketing reports. I can further look into the stats and maybe send you a copy of that. Some of the things that I think you need to consider is, there are parts of social media that can be outsourced. Okay, in terms of, getting someone to design your Facebook page or getting someone to help you build up a bit of brand around what you want to achieve. Or maybe investing in software that will help you monitor your social media performance. But having said that, the major contribution is going to come from you as a business owner, or someone within your business who's going to drive that process. Because even if you hire an external marketing agency, they will still need to constantly get feedback from you as a business owner. And I think it's a combination of everything. So that's why when you start budgeting on social media, what you got to look at is, the most important thing is a time factor. The next thing you're going to look at, the cost of getting a nice Facebook page done. Okay, something which carries your brand, making sure that your Facebook page, your Twitter page, they all look alike so that your branding is consistent across all platforms. Then looking at analytics tools, you can either use some of the free tools or you can subscribe for paid social monitoring tools as such. Some people find value in advertising on social media platforms like YouTube or Facebook. It again depends upon the industry you're into. See, the difference between advertising on Facebook as compared to Google AdWords is, with Google AdWords, you're targeting people when they search specific keyword phrases. Whereas in Facebook, you can target people on a specific age group or a specific segment. So it has its own benefits as such. So if, for example, if you're a wedding planner, you'd love to target everyone on Facebook who has a status has recently engaged or whatever it is, because you know that they're more qualified, or they would be more qualified for your services than someone who's just, turned 18 or whatever. Okay, I might be running across maybe 5 or 10 minutes above our time, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I think the key factors with social media is practically the most important thing is attraction, how to get people to be interested in your social media existence. Once you do that, the next thing is how to make sure that they keep coming back to you. Because you can acquire a follower, but if the follower doesn't react to your business or your social media messages, then it's no point. And then more importantly is how to convert someone from someone who likes your business to buying it from you. And then finally making sure that you've got the right kind of tools to measure what is working for you. So if you take a recap of what we talked about, the most important thing is you need to have a content strategy. You need to know what you're going to be writing in. You can't just simply go and type in something on Twitter and consider that as a T2 activity. It has to generate some kind of viral effect. That's what social media is all about. It's about, you spreading your word and to your followers and then someone else retweeting it further on. And that can only happen if your content is fresh. You can't keep tweeting the same thing again and again. Okay, you got to find a way, how do you actually engage your community, or how do you engage people who already are your existing followers and so on, because you need to find a way, otherwise your quality of your fans will not improve, and the existing fans will be less engaging than what they are. And I think most important is that end of the day, you got to understand that you got to be as human or as transparent as possible, because it's practically like having a conversation. Okay, it's not about being very creative and having some funny ads running as you would do on advertising. It's more about a conversation that's happening. And most importantly, is that you are a good listener on those platforms, because people like it when someone listens to you. What is really important is you have to measure everything that you do in social media or any kind of marketing activity. It's no point if you can't measure it, because then you have no idea whether it is working for your business or whether it's not working for your business. And it's not a one-off thing, it's not something that you do it and that's it. It's an ongoing process. So that's why I said it's quite expensive, because the biggest cost for you is your time factor. And how much ever you try to outsource, you need to be involved in it. You cannot depend upon someone external to be your social media person for you forever. You have to be a part of it. You need to know what your customers feel about your business. You need to know what your customers really want. And I think social media is the right platform for you to get that information. There are quite a lot of social media tools that are there in the market that you can use. Most of the social media tools would be like a monthly fee of anything between $15 a month up to maybe $50 a month. Some of them are free. So it depends upon how serious you're about your social media strategy. You can try with the free ones and then maybe go for the paid ones later on. What these social media tools do is they give you a better understanding. They tell you, you know, how is the sentiments about your business in the social community? Are they more of positive influence or negative influence? Every time you do a tweet, you would like to know how many people, kind of retweet that thing and so on. So it's really important and it's worthwhile for you to understand what's happening on your website, or on your social media platform, or what do people think about your business. If you want me to send you a copy of your newsletter, of the webinar thing, I can definitely do that. If you can just shoot me an email to sam@netschool.com.au, I'm more than happy to send you a copy of the presentation. Now, one of the most important things you need to understand is it's not the number of followers that really matters. It's the quality of those followers. If the people who follow you are following you because of your freebies that you offer them, then what are the chances of getting revenue out of them? So you got to really understand exactly, what it is. There are a lot of people who consider themselves to be social media experts, but you got to understand that all they can do is they can provide you with a social media plan. You need to be involved in the process. You need to have the right kind of strategy to follow. If you don't do that, you're not going to get anything out of it. I've tried to cover as much as possible in this 1 hour, because the thing about social media, it's constantly changing and it's all about self-education. So you got to not only use social media to reach out to your customers. I think a social media is a good platform to even educate yourself. It's a good thing to understand. And most importantly, what you got to make sure that when you use social media, don't lie on this platform, because if you start lying and if you get caught, okay, it's going to have more negative impact. Some of the things you look at is, you say it's a great thing to share as much information as possible. The more information you give in social media, the more likely people are going to come back for more. And the only place they can come back for more is either they contact you, which is a good signal for you, or they'll start going to your website. So whatever you do on a social media platform, it should reflect back on your website. I guess I've done a bit of a overdose of social media in the last 60 minutes. I'm not sure how much of that would really help you with your social media plan, but if you're struggling with your marketing strategy, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to give you a bit of guidance as to what you need to do with regards to your online marketing strategy. Apart from doing webinars, what I also do is once in a month I do more like a face-to-face seminar on online marketing. This is normally done in the office. So what I tend to do is get around 10 or 12 business owners into a room, explain to them what they need to do with regards to online marketing, and maybe actually discuss their business in front of other business owners. So that way you come to know exactly what's wrong with your website. There's no fee attached to it. We only do it once a month, and it only happens in Sydney. If you would like to know a bit more about the face-to-face events, it's normally a 3-hour seminar where I talk about search engine optimization, how to do it for your business, Google AdWords, how to do Google AdWords, and what are the things you got to watch out for when you do Google AdWords. But apart from that, if you need anything, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.